Hello, and welcome to our June landlord meeting for Freedom Property Management. We're very happy to have our team and to have many of our landlord clients joining us either live or watching after the fact. So thank you for taking the time to do that. We like to get on every 1 to 2 months and talk to our clients, let you see our faces, bring in some of our industry professionals to further educate on topics that are in the landlord-tenant arena. We're going to go through some updates on what's going on with Freedom, kind of some things that are happening in the market. We'll end with a Q&A session and overall have things pretty informal. If you have a question along the way, feel free to raise your hand. Feel free to drop your question in the chats as well. If you're not familiar with using Zoom and you're online, or you're on live, I should say, you have the ability to open a chat box on the bottom of your screen if you're on a computer. So you can open that chat box and you can either send that to everybody or to one of us individually. Keep in mind that if your question is very specific to your property, we may need to come back to you on that. It may not be something that we can answer in this format. But if it's general in nature, we'll do our best to answer that. And yeah, I hope everyone is staying cool and comfortable. We are hopefully at the end of our first heat wave here in Northern Virginia. And I, for one, am ready to be able to walk outside and not immediately be drenched in sweat. So on that topic of heat, we're going to tee up our awesome insurance professionals that have agreed to join us today. Cory is a highly respected insurance agent here in the Northern Virginia area and just has a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of resources, and has the ability to explain things in a way that makes sense to a broad range. So we asked Cory and Nicole to join us to go through some very important information on landlord insurance, on renters insurance, and then answer some of those preliminary questions. So I will turn things over to you, Cory, if you want to share your screen and take the lead.
Sure. Good morning, everybody, and thank you again for having us. I go by Cory Insures Nova on most social media. This is Nicole Harris, who's our vice president, so I'm glad she's able to join us as well. Our main office is out of the Mechanicsville area. I am the Northern Virginia agent here out of Gainesville, Haymarket. So definitely familiar with the area. I've been in touch with Tiffany on and off for some time now as well. So it's a pleasure to be able to kind of speak with you all and be of assistance if we can be. Let me see if I can share here.
Yeah, we'll have Roel stop sharing and that way Cory can share. There we go.
All right. Can everybody see the PowerPoint there?
Yes.
All right, great. So we're just going to go a little bit about kind of the importance of maybe how property management and insurance kind of tie in a little bit and how it can be helpful. So Nicole, feel free to chime in if there's anything that you want to just speak on, or if you hear me pause for too long, that's going to be a great cue for you to come in with your overwhelming bit of knowledge. But talking about landlord, oh, I'm sorry, you good? Oh, okay. Okay. What is landlord insurance? So this is just a kind of an open-ended question. Is it a maintenance or repair plan? Is insurance that's the same as homeowners insurance, just a different name? Is insurance designed to protect rental property owners from potential financial losses? Is it insurance designed just for Airbnb properties? So sometimes people don't actually know exactly what landlord insurance is, or the type of policy, which would be a dwelling fire policy, or how a renter's policy even comes into play as well, because that's different than this as well. So What we're actually looking at here is landlord insurance is specialized insurance policy designed for property owners who rent out one or more residential homes, apartments, or condos. Um, Unlike a standard homeowner's policy, which covers owner occupied properties, landlord insurance protects you, the property owner, when you're not living in the home and it's being rented to tenants. So less focus on what's in the home and more focus on the home itself, the rebuild of the home, the liability of the home, the detached structures. The personal property is more focused on what a renter's policy was before, or the people that are going to be occupying that property. So when you're the landlord, you want your clients to have renters insurance to not only cover themselves for liability, but to make sure that whatever they're bringing into that home is going to be covered as far as their personal belongings go. Now, when you are that landlord or you're renting out your property or renting out somebody's property, keep in mind that, appliances, washer and dryers, kitchen appliances, a stove, those are going to be, that's personal property that would actually be attached to the landlord policy or the dwelling fire policy. The renter's not going to be worried about those things because they don't own those things. But whatever they bring in their backpack, they empty off their truck and bring in the home that they're going to be renting, then that's going to be their personal property on their renter's policy. Key coverages, as I mentioned, one of the most important things is the dwelling coverage. How much is it going to cost to rebuild the home from scratch in worst case scenario? So this is not taking into account the market value, the appraised value, what the land costs. This is just making sure the home is rebuilt back to its current state in general. Liability protects against lawsuits. We highly recommend you having at least 500,000 on your policy to make sure that you have the best coverage available. You can go above and beyond that, and that's with an umbrella policy, which I think we talk about a little bit more towards another page here. Loss of rental income covers income loss during repairs. So if you have somebody that's going to be displaced because maybe the AC went out or there was a fire or there has to be something that needs to be done and then the tenants have to be put out somewhere else, well, then you have coverage if needed, if it financially makes sense to reimburse yourself in the event that you're not getting rent or somebody has to be put up somewhere else. Personal property covers items provided by the landlord. So if they are leaving back things such as a hot tub, the appliances, maybe they are leaving that, maybe the basement's still furnished because they're leaving belongings there. Maybe the whole place is furnished. Then you do want to make sure that on your on the policy that there would be coverage for personal property that's going to be equivalent to what you think you're leaving behind. That would be something for you to kind of assess a little bit and have a general idea. If you're leaving TVs, you're leaving appliances, you're leaving the lawnmowers, any personal property you're leaving behind, you want to make sure that that's going to be covered on that landlord policy. Water backup, something you always want to make sure that's on there that protects against water and sewer and drain backup. This is not going to entail covering for any type of flood. That is a separate policy in itself. Fair rental value reimbursement if the unit becomes uninhabitable. Ordinance law is another good one for homes that are a little bit older. It covers the cost to meet new codes. So if there's a loss when the home is rebuilt, they will, if the spindles are supposed to be closer or further apart, they will update the spindles to make sure that they are that way. Or there's a new code for the electric, the way the electric needs to be set up, or the railings need to be a certain height now compared to 20 years ago. Then ordinance law allows for coverage in there to help rebuild the home to that specification. There's also can be coverage for vandalism and theft, protection from malicious damage or burglary. Now, Nicole and I have to thank one of our coworkers, Taylor, because she puts these nice little fun little things in here just to like do that. So it makes the screen look a little more fun. But umbrella coverage provides additional liability coverage beyond the basic policy. So a lot of times we have an umbrella that will cover a home and auto together. So you might have 500,000 liability on your home. You might have 5,000 liability on your auto. That'll help you to qualify for an umbrella. Umbrellas are in increments of $1 million. So you can have $1 million umbrella, 2, 3, 4, 5. That liability comes into play should the liability on your home or your auto is exceeded. It protects your assets from large lawsuits or liability claims. essential for landlords with multiple properties or high risk tenants. So I personally have not come into an issue where somebody was suing somebody or needed to reach into the umbrella. Our agency definitely has. I personally have not. But this would be something that I just tell even the average person. If you have assets, if you have a car, a house, multiple cars, you have kids, you have things that are valuable to you, for the cost of an umbrella, which could be $200-300 maybe for the year, to have that extra peace of mind and liability coverage to extend beyond your home and auto could be really, really valuable in the event that something does happen or a what if happens. What you should require as a property manager and maybe making sure that these policies do have these things. As I mentioned, we want to make sure that you have the best liability coverage. It's very easy to say, well, I just want the minimum because I need to make sure my premium's down. Well, I just want the minimum. And if you put $500,000, that's usually the maximum that they'll do on like a standard home or a dwelling fire policy. If you were to take the next two options, which would be 300,000 or 100,000, you're literally talking about saving $5, $10, maybe $15 for the year. So there is a much better value in higher coverage a lot of times when we're talking about liability and medical payments. So do not skimp. Never skimp on insurance. Of course, you want the best value, but don't skimp on those coverages that really matter. Temporary housing coverage, if the unit is uninhabitable, that will be on there. We talked about that coverage a little bit earlier. Making sure your medical payments are at least 5,000. And we kind of had this discussion the other day in a property management class, but a lot of times people want to be listed as the additional interest, which is very helpful. That'll help keep you a little bit in touch with, policy renewals, maybe bill payments, making sure the policies are still instated. I know, specifically, Tiffany, you had spoke the other day about how your system kind of keeps track of a lot of that, which I think is awesome because there's a lot of times where tenants may show you that renter's insurance and then cancel it. And they're doing themselves a huge disservice by doing that, especially when renters insurance. I just did a renter policy this morning, literally, or a renter's quote. It was for a young lady that's going to be renting back. She's selling a home, but she's going to have to live in it for about 15 days until she moves into her new home. And the renter's policy is literally based mostly on, like I said, their personal property and their liability coverage. So she had 150,000 in personal property. We had maxed out medical and liability coverage, and the premium was about $300, maybe $250. That's for the year. That's not monthly. So, and I'm not saying, everybody's in their own different financial comforts of what they can afford and can't afford, but $300 for the grand scheme of being covered properly, to me, makes sense and is affordable. And we just really don't want to see people canceling renters policies because your policy as a landlord is not going to cover their belongings if something happens. And it's not really expected to be. That's what that renter policy is for them to protect their belongings. And you also want to maybe make sure, if you can, that it's an A-rated carrier. All of our carriers are A-rated. That I say that usually that means that they are financially strong enough and capable to back and have a history of just being a substantial company that you don't necessarily have to worry about, hey, are they going to pay out? Are they worth it? Are they a good company? So you go on to websites and you'll see something called AM Best ratings, and all of our carriers are A-rated. So if that is something you're looking for a quality company or something, that might be something you might consider saying, hey, we want it to be AM Best A-rated. What insurance companies care about. And this is what another reminder, not to keep dropping Tiffany's name, but she started this dialogue the other day about how, as a property manager, how important it is for you guys to actually gather the information when you go to a property and really take a look at the overall condition of the property, because it's not only helpful for them to understand the condition of the property so they know maybe how to bring value to the property or how to maintain it or what needs to be done, but it's crucial for insurance. When a new policy is started, generally there's going to be an exterior inspection. And nowadays, more than ever, the property needs to be in good condition. 10, 15 years ago, when Nicole and I were in this business, there was less emphasis on maybe the age of the roof, or if there was a little bit of, the home wasn't in as great a condition on the outside, or maybe a railing was missing or a step was missing. They might just kind of say, hey, when you get a chance, if you can update these things or whatever. Nowadays, they are literally trying to minimize their risk of having a claim. And when insurance companies have claims, they're losing money. So that's the way I look at it. They're going to want to reduce that risk as best as possible. So when you're going out there, and I don't know who goes out there and really does your inspections and stuff, but we want to make sure the roof's in good condition. You want to make sure that maybe trees are cut back and not hanging over the home. You want to make sure that plumbing's updated, that maybe the electrical panel is updated, that railings are properly placed, and there's steps, and there's a balcony, or railings around the balcony. Another thing that really sticks out to me, because I've seen this personally, and maybe you do or don't deal with it, but if somebody's going to be renting out their home, and if they kind of have, I'll be nice and say, a bunch of junk sitting in their backyard, the insurance companies don't want to see that stuff. They don't. They look at it as it could be some sort of exposure, some sort of hindrance to the increased chance of a liability, or if the shed's in bad condition or falling apart. You want to have a quality kind of property out there, and for insurance, that's going to be really helpful for making sure that when they do their extra inspections, they don't come back and either cancel you, non-renew you, or make a list of requests that don't seem possible at that time, especially financially or time-based. Occupancy type. So, they could be vacant, it could be under renovation, or it could be rented. Those are different types of policies sometimes. So if a home is going to be vacant for 30 days or more, your insurance agent should know that. And if you guys know that, that's something you really do want to pay attention to and keep in touch with the agent or your tenant to let them know, hey, this is going to be vacant for longer than we thought. We need to consider a different type of policy. Because if they come out and do that inspection 2 to 3 weeks after a new policy starts, and they realize that nobody's in there, there's been no movement, we have a problem. That's a different type of policy because nobody's in the home. So we just want to make sure things are written properly. And that's not so much your worry to make sure they're written properly, but just having the information and being accurate and being open, and having full disclosure with your tenants and them with their insurance agents, or you with the insurance, is going to be really good for the long haul, and making sure that everybody's covered properly and you have less liability on that. Other things that also stick out and could be an issue is the liability exposures, pools, trampolines, as we mentioned, railings, pets, the types of pets people have. These things all do come into account of a certain carrier insuring you, a certain carrier needing to add an endorsement on there to make sure you're covered properly. There's so many times that people add pools, add trampolines, get dogs, and they don't address their insurance company. Well, for Nicole and I, we're a broker. So we ask all these questions when we're going through the process, because we have to narrow down and narrow through all of our carriers to make sure that carrier A is okay with a pool, but they're not okay with that type of dog. Well, carrier B is okay with both. So just once again, just being honest on applications for clients, or making sure that everybody's on the same page of that, is going to be really helpful to make sure that whatever that quote is and the coverage is accurate, and running it into less issues in the future. A big one is claim history. We have a way of finding out if there's been claims on homes. It's called a clue report. So sometimes we just do this for, realtors and lenders and stuff like that are looking at properties, or are looking to put a property on the market, and they just don't have any history of the home. What I can do is just enter an address, loosely run a quote, and go to the insurance history, and usually find out within the last 5 or 7 years if there's been a claim on the home. Now, it won't provide us with super specific details, but it may say January 1st, 2020, wind claim $10,000. September 1st, 2024, water claim $7,000. This is really helpful for, I think, realtors who are putting homes on the market to either advertise as a clean home, or for a realtor that's looking into a property for somebody, if you're getting to that point, to just do a little bit more deep diving to the seller to make sure that those things have been mitigated. Maybe they have receipts, things can be documented, and then the insurance company can understand, hey, there was a big claim, but we have a plumbing inspection, everything's up to date. The wind damage from 2020, is great or was not great, but the whole roof was replaced, so the roof's updated. So there is a benefit to kind of having that information and doing a little bit more deep diving on a clue report and having access to that from an insurance agent. Um, we've done a little bit of research and found out that it is 60% fewer claims when you have a property manager, yeah, looking over your property. And, Nicole and I were doing some research and we're like looking at all these benefits of having one. And it's like, why would you not have one? From being not having to worry about who's collecting the rent to someone else worrying about it for you, to having that legal protection. It's lowering the vacancy rates, better tenant screenings. I mean, you guys are taking the work out of a lot of headaches from the people that might think that this is a no-brainer to just try to find a tenant themselves. So I can go on and on about that, but the big thing that stood out, and I know that Tiffany, we were talking about this the other day, of that's a pretty significant thing, to have 60% fewer claims when we're talking about the importance of insurance and we're talking about the things that really come into play that can hinder a policy or hinder a policy being in place. So you're not only just having somebody manage your property, but it sounds like they're really increasing the ability to protect it a little bit as well. And just a little bit more about us. We have multiple carriers. We customize coverage. We have access to commercial life, health, dwelling fire, landlord, renters policies, builders risks if somebody's building a home, vacant property if they're in the process of doing some updates and renovations. We are the middleman, so we are the advocate for the client. And cost savings without cutting coverage because we shop things around. So we're never going to we're never going to cut coverage to try to beat a policy. It's all about making sure we're finding you the best value with the same or better coverage. Once again, you can always reach out to me directly. You can reach out to Nicole as well. Nicole is out of our Mechanicsville office. But my address is right there in Haymarket, Gainesville. My email, Cory at atkinsonins.com, and my number, that's my direct contact for my office number. And you can reach me directly also on all social media at Cory Insures Nova. Nicole, is there anything you'd like to chime in on or add to?
No, really the only thing is we do have a few carriers that actually will offer our landlords discounts if there is a property manager attached to the policy. And that discount can be pretty significant. So, I would just make sure that, you're mentioning that or, looking at carriers that, give that discount. Because I do know that, every penny counts when you're trying to save. So.
That's fantastic. Thank you for bringing that up, Nicole. We've heard that from some people, but it's not as widely known. So, having that information out there, as well as the 60% fewer claims, that's pretty outstanding. So thank you for doing that extra research and supporting, us and our clients. A couple of frequently asked questions that we get on the property management side from both renters and from landlords. If I could kind of throw those your way and have you guys do answer some of those. And then if anyone else on the call has any questions for Cory or Nicole while we have them live, please either drop it in the chat or go ahead and raise your hand and we can get those questions answered. And Cory, we talked about some of these at Tuesday's event, so you should be well primed for these questions. So, first question that comes up that we get from tenants is, especially in situations like we're having right now, where we might be losing power for an extended period of time, or a refrigerator breaks and tenant just did a $500 Costco run and tenant just lost all of the food in their refrigerator. We get that notification from our tenant saying, hey, I need the landlord to reimburse me for the food that I just lost.
Well, there's a couple different ways to look at this. One, we would not recommend generally that someone always just claim that. There's a way to kind of assess that. One is to possibly talk to your agent about how much damage you have, how much food you lost. because when you compare that to your deductible, it may not be worth that claim anyway. And when we did talk about this the other day, and we just are trying to discourage people from making small claims. You really want claims to be something more catastrophic, sudden, accidental, and pricey, if you will. I'm not saying it's not financially uncomfortable to lose your grocery haul that you just had. That could be hundreds of dollars for sure. But in the grand scheme of insurance and then things going on your insurance history, ideally, we would probably recommend that you don't claim it. You can claim it if that's something you want to do, but we would recommend you didn't. We really want to try to hold off for something that is sudden, accidental, catastrophic, and maybe super expensive, like a large loss. Your roof blew off. You got a significant car accident. If we're talking about cars, but something like that, we would not recommend necessarily claiming. We don't want to add little things to your insurance history, even though people say, well, what's my insurance for? Sudden, accidental, catastrophic is kind of my answer to that.
Because the more often that you submit claims, the higher that could then make your future premiums.
Yeah, not only will your future premiums be higher, you could be starting to be excluded from some carriers because they don't want the risk. You're going to be looked at as a liability as someone that might be making frequent claims. So even when you call something in as a tenant or landlord, as a homeowner, the difference of having a broker like Nicole and I is we don't work directly for the carrier. So we encourage people to call us and kind of have that dialogue before they decide what to do. And not every company that people have insurance with works the way that we do. So that's not going to be necessarily the case. And I know, if you call, big box company number one and you say, hey, I'm curious to see if I have roof damage, they're going to mark that down as a claim. They're going to come out and take a look. As soon as that adjuster comes out, essentially a claim has been filed, whether you get a payout or not.
And an example like we just discussed where, tenant loses their Costco haul, is that tenant insurance or is that landlord insurance if they insist on going the insurance route?
Well, that would be personal property, right? So that we would be making sure that the tenant was understanding that that's going to be their responsibility. Now, in the long term, I'm sure they're going to have a problem and they're going to say it's probably the landlord's fault because it's not their air conditioning. So I'm sure that can run into some issues with that. Nicole, you got anything you want to add to that? Maybe to bring a little bit more clarity to that type of scenario?
Yes. So unless the landlord was actually negligent in some type of fashion, it really wouldn't fall on the landlord. It would be something that, the tenant's policy would need to cover. Again, unless you could prove that the landlord was negligent.
And I'm pretty sure as a landlord, as a homeowner, you're going to be doing your best to try to get that up and running as quickly as you can anyway. So it's not something that you're trying to be malicious about. And hopefully the tenant does have an understanding of that. It can be uncomfortable. It can be money lost. But they're going to have to make the decision that they feel is best when it comes to, do they want to claim it just doesn't make sense to really claim it. I mean, unless you have in my opinion, if you have a freezer full of a cow,
right?
Hundreds and hundreds of dollars.
$3,000 cow delivered, then yes.
Yes, then I would say, hey, this might
which
be
I've had
something.
happen at my own house. So yes.
And I'm not, and like I said, I try to always speak kind of very about common sense type of stuff. So like I'm not trying to say that $100 is not a lot of money to lose, because it is. But if we're talking about the grand scheme of insurance and how it'll impact you, that's not going to be a wise decision to make a claim.
Yep, exactly.
For your grocery bill.
We do have a question from Tracy asking if you can explain the differences between backup and flood coverage.
So water backup is going to cover things coming up through your drain within the home, things coming up out of your toilet, things coming up out of the tub. Flood is water coming from up underground. That's a whole separate policy. And there's actually parameters that need to come into play for flood to even be covered. It's not just you got water in your basement, it's a flood. It has to be categorized as a flood as well. And there are perimeters like, it's got to be so much amount of land that has been underwater, or so many properties that are connected that have been underwater. So that's a whole separate policy itself. So if you do want to be covered for flood, then you need to make sure you're getting a separate policy for that.
Got it.
And to chime in there, I actually found out today that it looks like the state of Virginia is going to actually require that water backup be added on all policies going forward. So trying to get the verbiage and like if there's like an amount that they're going to require, but it does look like that is going to be a mandatory coverage that you start adding to all policies.
And that is a coverage that we've been adding to all of our policies anyway. Like that's never been a question of whether should we add it or should we not. I never cut that policy, that endorsement out ever. Now, if someone does request it, sometimes we might have them sign a document saying, hey, we're requesting to remove this coverage because we would not recommend going without it. And I normally put 50,000 on a townhouse or a single family home at the very least. Maybe the bigger the home, the more assets you have, you consider putting more in. Sometimes that water backup coverage can go up to as high as coverage A, which would be the dwelling rebuild coverage.
Excellent. All right. Any other questions from anyone on the call? I did want to chime in and provide some information regarding how Freedom handles insurance. Cory alluded to, and he mentioned that here at Freedom, we do have a process, we have a system to maintain compliance and to make sure that all of our renters have renter's insurance from the time that their lease starts to the time that they vacate the property. We have a system that will record and track that. And then if the tenant's insurance does lapse, then we have a master policy that they'll auto enroll the tenant into our umbrella policy, so that your tenant is always covered. That we include, that we want to make sure is always covered and handled for all of our properties and all of our tenants. We also do track our landlord insurance, and that's something more manually that we do a couple of times throughout the year. And so landlord clients, you may hear from us a couple of times throughout the year if we have not gotten your renewal, if we have not gotten your updated deck page, if our system shows that we have an expired insurance. So the reason for that is we want to make sure that you have us listed as an additional interest on your landlord policy. So if something does happen, we can contact your insurance provider and we can get the ball rolling for you in the case of a catastrophic situation. We want to be as proactive as possible with maintaining your dwelling unit and protecting your tenant. So if you do make any changes on that side, make sure that we are one of the first to know that. And obviously, quote years around, check and make sure that you're receiving the best policy at the best price from the best company. And Cory and Nicole with Atkinson would love the opportunity to have that conversation and see if they can do any better for you. So we will make sure that you have all of their information in our follow-up emails. You also saw it on Cory's his last slide. Like you said, you can find them all over social media at Cory Insures Nova. And we are very, very grateful to have the two of you on. Any final comments before we go into our Freedom part of the meeting?
Nicole?
No, thank you so much for having us.
Thanks, Nicole.
Yeah, thank you again as well. I actually have to head over to another meeting and pick up my son, so I do apologize, or else I would stick out the meeting. Thank you guys again. Tiffany, thank you again for allowing us to kind of chime in on this. And if anybody has any questions, don't hesitate to reach out at any time, and we really appreciate the opportunity. So keep us in mind if you guys need anything.
Great. So our kind of the Freedom part of our landlord Zoom meeting. And I'm going to turn controls over to our assistant property manager, Roel, for him to lead us through. We're going to have a couple of our teammates provide information on their area of the company. But first, Roel is going to go through an introduction of the team so that everyone can get a bit of a reminder of who we are and what our faces look like.
Thank you, Tiffany. Hi, everyone. Good morning. So, welcome to Freedom Property Management Performance, summary review for April and also May, for the past 2 months. So, first, we would like to introduce to you the team of Freedom Property Management. So, I think you're much kind of familiar with the faces. Maybe you can see like these faces in social medias with the past, landlord meeting that we had. So these are the wonderful, behind the scene of, how Freedom Property Management works. So we have Tiffany, Tracy, Ella, Pat, our leasing coordinator, maintenance, and also me. So if ever you do have questions, feel free to call our hotlines, reach out, look for someone, and then we're definitely glad to assist you on that. Thank you. And also now, we can now move forward. I'll passing the ball to Stacy to discuss the real estate market update. So go ahead, Stacy. You can now have the floor.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm Stacy Bowman. For those that don't know me, I am a realtor on the sales side of Freedom Property Management and Sales. I just wanted to give you a little brief market update. So Northern Virginia housing market in May of 2025 continued its transition toward more balanced conditions with increased inventory and longer time on the market, giving buyers some much needed breathing room, according to the Northern Virginia Association of Realtors. While the pace of sales has slowed slightly, home values remain strong, signaling that demand though moderated, is still present in the region. A total number of 1,746 homes were sold in May, marking a 4.2 decrease compared to May of last year. Total sold dollar volume reached approximately $1.6 billion, down from 1% of year over year. Despite the dip in the sales activity, the median sales price has risen 3.9% to $789,500, reflecting continued competition for well-priced homes. We're seeing a market that's finding its footing. Transaction volume has cooled modestly, which isn't unexpected given the broader economic headwinds and buyer sensitivity to interest rates. At the same time, price appreciation and rising inventory are signs that the market remains fundamentally sound, just adjusting to a new rhythm. Homes in Northern Virginia spent on average 15 days on the market in May, which is a 40% increase from this time last year. Meanwhile, active listings surged to 2,636 units, which is up from May of 2024. In a new study that Bright MLS just put out, Bright MLS is the region's listing service that shows that nearly 40% of real estate agents in the DC metro area say that they have worked with a client whose decision to buy or sell was due to federal workforce layoffs and cuts. Many agents say that they believe that the federal workforce layoffs are having impact on sales activity and price. Of those agents, 43% say that the layoffs and cuts were driven more selling activity, and 38% say that the cause of prices to lower. But in conclusion, the growing number of listings means buyers have more choices and more time to make them. But this isn't necessarily a return to a buyer's market. Sellers who price competitively are still seeing strong results, especially in Northern Virginia's most desirable areas. That's what I have for a market update.
Thank you, Stacy. Our sales team here at Freedom has been very active, very busy here over the last couple of months, both working with our existing client base of landlords that have decided that it's time to no longer be a landlord and they want to sell their rental property, We have some that are acquiring new rental properties, and then we have some buyers that are in our community that we've met through a number of different areas that have been personally referred to us that we're working with. And there's a lot of confidence in our market. The Northern Virginia region, as Stacy said, we're kind of an anomaly. We're in this bubble where we have been affected by a lot of the federal cuts. Most of that has been in like the DC area. While we've had a bit of impact in that here in the suburbs in Prince William County and Fauquier and Stafford, that it didn't last as long for those kind of out this way. But we're excited to see more of this balanced market, like Stacy talked about, a lot more opportunity for buyers. We're seeing opportunity for our tenants to finally get back into the market. Interest rates haven't done a whole lot. They're still, hovering in that mid 6% range. And so we're not going to see a whole lot of affordability come from interest rates. We're also not going to see a whole lot of price reductions and lowering of values. But we do still continue to see a very strong buyer market with, high incomes, good, solid financial positions. We do have a big push in our area and nationwide for more affordable housing. And so with new construction that is happening within our region, we are seeing divisions of those properties be designated specifically for affordable housing units. And that is very exciting for the base of buyers in our area that can't afford the $789,000 median price point for Nova. So keep on the lookout. We will continue to provide you with some of that information as well. We have a lot of new subdivisions that are coming under construction here in the area. And so we'll be getting some of that info out as well to our landlord clients. If you're interested in picking up new properties and getting in on the first phase of new development, is always a good opportunity. So thank you so much, Stacy. Our real estate team is really knocking it out of the park right now.
Thank you, Stacey and Tiffany. Now we can go ahead and discuss the leasing summary report for April and May. I'm not sure, Tracy, maybe you can help us with the lease summary report.
Happy to do that. So we are at a current occupancy rate of 95.2%, with 161 out of our 165 units in our portfolio currently rented, and we have 4 active listings on the market. Our leasing over the last 2 months has brought 9 properties onto the market for rent, and 8 of those 9 were rented, resulting in a 90% leasing conversion rate. And out of the 8 new leases, 6 of our tenants have pets, which is bringing in some additional revenue for those owners with pet rents. And 40 leases expired during this time, with 26 of the 40 renewing and 14 of those vacating. The top reasons we have here currently for tenants vacating: military orders, it's PCS time, so I'm not surprised by that. Some orders have been delayed, some have been pushed back and are still on verge, but there's still a lot of activity with that. And then we've got quite a few owners who have chosen to come back and move into their properties. Some of those were by military orders as well. And then we've had several of our owners, as Tiffany said, that have decided it's time to sell this investment and move on to other pastures, another investment, focusing the money on retirement or whatever their reasoning for that. So it has been a very active spring, and we expect the continuance of this pattern of activity over the next 2 or 3 months.
Gotcha. Thank you, Tracy. Now, team, we can actually move to the maintenance part. So for the maintenance summary report, I'll be walking you through with a brief overview of our recent or work order analysis covering the volume, trends, and most common issues we've seen over the past 2 months. So looking at the volume by month, as you can see, we have total handled work orders of 154. And on an average, our team completed each work order for roughly 13 days. So while this is within a manageable time frame, we're still showing consistent follow through and timely resolution, but actively we're reviewing, ways and streamline processes and reduce turnaround time as early as possible there. And as you can see here, there's most common work orders issues, which is number one, air conditioner, which is not surprising as we head into warmer, months, as well as the garage door, doors related issues, dishwasher, and then leaking, or sink leak. Sorry for that one. Yeah. And next that we have is the survey summary report that we have. So total of, we have 20 survey responses, and 18 residents gave perfect 5-star rating, which is a great reflection of the team's commitment to service and responsiveness to every work orders that we receive. So some of the feedback that we received, that's actually pertaining to how how great our team responding to their work orders, to the service, as well as to the landlord side, providing replacement to some of the appliances that they have. So this is just greatly at the testament of an example of how landlord decisions are directly impacting the residents' happiness as well. There you go. Anything, Tiffany, Tracy, for additional?
Yeah, I wanted to jump in real quick. We were talking about it before we officially started our meeting and saying that, May, June, July are some of the busiest months for us here in property management, and especially here in Northern Virginia, because we've added on the turnovers, as you saw in the prior slide, with leasing, with tenants moving out, tenants moving in, new property owners and new properties coming on board, owners moving back into properties, and summer vacations and 100-degree heat waves. A lot of that piles up. And so this is our busiest time of year. The time that it takes for us to respond to maintenance requests is incredibly important to us, and making sure that we can respond quickly, that we can take care of your tenants, that we can keep your properties in good condition is of our utmost importance. So when our team does reach out to provide feedback, to get estimate authorizations, or just to give you a heads up that, hey, we've had to do something within our approval limit. We really, really appreciate all of the feedback and the prompt responses that we have from our property owners. I will say that this time of year as well, and whenever you have tenant turnovers, or you have aging systems like aging HVACs or aging water heaters, the cost of those maintenance items really does skyrocket. And we're seeing an increased cost in some of those system replacements. Right now, one of the last HVAC systems that we had replaced at one of our properties, so an average size HVAC system, we're looking at between $11,000 and $13,000. And here in Northern Virginia for a single system, we're looking at $2,500 for a standard water heater. And from what we've heard from some of our property owners, that equivalent replacement cost, even in other parts of the Commonwealth of Virginia, is much lower. One of our clients who's in the Roanoke area had their HVAC system replaced on a very similar property, and it was maybe $8,000, and our price was like $12,000. So be prepared that the cost of materials, the cost of repairs is increasing, and we need to be able to respond and to get those done as quickly as possible. We do our best to keep the prices as low as we can, to partner with contractors that are going to be quick to respond, that are going to be reasonable, that are going to treat your tenants well, that are looking out for you. And we're going to keep that price as low as possible, but we can't control the market. So we thank you for helping us get through this busiest time of year with as much sanity as we can. And as you can see from the resident surveys that we do, it's equating to satisfaction on the resident side. And we know that happy tenants take care of your property, they pay their rent on time, they communicate well with us. And so it ends up being a win-win all around.
Thanks, Tiffany.
If I just wanted to jump in real quick and say that in defense of that turnaround time for maintenance, quite a bit of that was major turnovers. So that's not reflective of routine maintenance. Routine maintenance is taken care of next day, most cases. But overall, when we do the analysis, it does factor in great big projects and major renovations. So just wanted to throw that in there that, it doesn't take us 14 days to fix a running toilet. Not at all. So yeah, that was a little misleading. So I just wanted to throw that out there to let everybody understand that we are very efficient, but we can't fudge the numbers. The numbers are what the numbers are. So, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Tracy. Yeah, so now we would like to give the floor to anyone. Maybe you have questions, clarification, or anything that you would like to share. Feel free to unmute yourself, or also you can, utilize the chat box if just in case you have question, you can send it there.
Crickets.
Yes, I have a question, and you may have covered this earlier. I just missed it. I'm trying to track these notes here.
Sure.
When a property goes vacant, what is the average time before it becomes occupied again? I mean, there's a process to that.
Yeah, that's a great question. We don't have that exact number already ready today, but we can have that put out when we share the recording of this. And I'll let you know that it really depends. So our goal obviously is to have as little vacancy time as possible between the outgoing tenant and the new tenant. But a couple factors are going to come into play that is going to control that. So, one is the quality of the tenant that's vacating and the quality of the property that they've been maintaining. And we will know that from doing our periodic inspections. So when it comes time for the property to become vacant, we'll be giving that heads up to you, the landlord, to the property owner, well in advance so that we can prepare accordingly for a longer vacancy time. If the tenant is not as cooperative, if they're not maintaining the home in a condition that it's, number one, going to be conducive to showing to new tenants, maybe, it's extra cluttered, they have too much stuff, they work from home, they have lots of pets, we're going to have that conversation with you so that we're putting a plan in place and everyone is on the same page. And in those cases, a lot of times we will do coming soon status in terms of marketing for new tenants before the current tenants vacate. And then once the tenants have their move out inspection, we're usually getting our contractors in there to do a double check on our move out inspection within 48 hours, and then getting any of those turnover repairs started. Obviously, if we need things done such as paint or flooring, that's going to take longer time. But generally, we're able to turn properties over within a couple of days if there's not a lot of work that needs to be done. The best case scenario is you have a great tenant, which most of our tenants are, and they, allow for showings and they're conducive to that. And we're able to get a new tenant lined up before an old tenant even vacates the property. We'll normally give at least 7 days in between the move out date and the move in date. That way, if anything was hidden during our inspections, if we need to do anything else, or if there's a delay, like in the movers for the tenants going out, we're not overlapping. And so we will, again, that 7 days is really where we would love to be. We would love to be in that 7 to 10 day sweet spot of vacancy. Sometimes it's a little bit longer, sometimes it's shorter. If you have a great tenant and we know and everything is going to be fantastic, and they've already lined up contractors to do cleaning and carpet cleaning and pest control, then there are some situations, that's like the exception to the rule, where we will do like a 2-day turnaround time between move out and move in. That always stresses us out. We make sure that we have full agreement, we have full understanding with the new tenants moving in that everything may not be ready when they move in. But we're then going to make that exception so that they can accommodate their movers or things of that nature. So again, to answer your question, it depends. The goal is 7 to 10 days max. And then when you got those outliers, it could be shorter, it could be longer.
Great. Appreciate the information. Thank you.
Sure. You're welcome. All right, great question. Really wanted to thank obviously our team for being here, our landlord clients for joining us, for listening in. If you have any questions for us about anything that we discussed during today's call, feel free to shoot our team an email. Also, be sure to follow us on our social media channels. We are very active right now on Facebook and Instagram. We are increasing our activity on YouTube and LinkedIn, and coming soon to TikTok. We do like to have fun while we're working. We've got a fantastic team. We've got a great marketing team members as well that, you've got to be able to have fun while you're working too. And so we really enjoy doing that. What to look out for in our next meeting. We're hoping to have our next one end of July, beginning of August. And a lot of what that's going to focus on is going to be updates to our forms, updates to Virginia landlord tenant laws. If you're not aware, in Virginia, landlord tenant laws and real estate regulations can change twice a year, January and July. And so you rely on us to keep you updated, to keep your lease documents updated, to make sure that we're following the current processes, procedures, regulations, all of those things. So we'll give you an update on that in our next Landlord Zoom. And if there's any topics that you have top of mind, anything that you would like for us to go deeper on, please let us know, and we will definitely incorporate that into future topics. Anything else, Roel, as we wrap up today?
Good for today. Thank you, team. So feel free to drop your questions, and we can definitely get back to you guys if just in case you have anything for us.
Wonderful.
Thank you guys for today.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. Stay cool. We'll see ya.